Welcome again, everyone. Today is Saturday afternoon, January 12th. Jim, you're on?
I am, sir.
Dave?
I'm here. I'm here, Captain.
Okay. I first want to give listeners a heads up. I am going to write an article. It'll be out either Monday or Tuesday. Kind of hesitated in the past to do this, but in light of some absolute bogus news that came out on, Tuesday or Wednesday on TRX, I'm going to write an article so our subscribers understand the company, understand why I have a big stake in the company, and we'll wait till the article comes out. It'll speak for itself. Now, David, you wanted to start with empires over, thousands of years have died over and over and again, and basically because people forget history.
Right. Well, those who don't know history are condemned to repeat it. That's how empires die. And again, I don't ever want anybody to think I'm un-American. It has nothing to do with it. I'm living in America. It's a great country. But that doesn't change the fact of what you're seeing go on around you. So you have to make rational decisions based on things that you're witnessing take place. You have to try and analyze them. It's like during the week, and Bill will cover this in his letter, he and I talk. There's always a logical reason why something's taking place. You just may not know it at that particular minute, and that's what causes fear. Fear is caused by not knowing what's going on. At least if you know what's going on, you could face your fears and figure a way around them. Well, as an empire dies, it's very similar. It doesn't want to die. It's had power for a very long time. But throughout history, no empire has ever lasted for a very long time. Ours, you have to ask yourself, and I'm going to run through a bunch of quick questions here, and I'll try and move these guys along on the answers because some of it's almost just redundant. We had President Trump. There's that ding again, guys. We had President Trump make a decision that he wanted to pull out of Syria. We saw, obviously, pretty much the whole world freak out. Freak out. You can't do that. You can't do that. Well, we saw something, and I posted an article about it during the week. John Bolton came out and all of a sudden starts, shooting his mouth off like he's the boss and it's going to, no, this has to happen and that has to happen and this has to happen. And
While he was in Israel.
While he was in Israel, which is the most insane part. At the same time, we have our new Pompeo running around screaming that Iran's the bad guy in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia is no problems with human rights. That Khashoggi guy, forget about it. He's long gone. Those 27 people that they executed in one morning, don't worry about that. Iran's the problem. Well, again, so all I get back to is Wesley Clark. General Wesley Clark told us a long time ago the plan. The plan hasn't changed. Jim, let's start with you. What's going on when you have your own people running around the world making statements that don't coincide with yours? What do you think's happening there?
I would say because of the position of the people you've mentioned, that what you're seeing is actually a form of a coup. That there is a body out there that wants to see something happen, and a person in charge who doesn't want to see it happen. The person in charge tends to be quite unique in his personality, and you have got to add the significant amount of generals that resigned over this situation. So there is a desire for a proxy war in Syria that will include Russia and ourselves, of course, that we may or may not be able to win right now. But business around the world is starting to tank everywhere. And what has always been the cure for a global turn down? War. So what I see is really a coup, in the sense that a major step was taken that may very well have had a good reason, and it was overturned, first by individuals more or less who clearly didn't have permission or cooperation of the White House, and secondly, those that did, for apparently he was finally convinced that maybe pulling out quickly or pulling out at all was wrong. So that development alone is something that history will look at again and again and again on really what we've chosen to do.
Well, Jim, I agree with that. I don't think it's such a soft coup, because that's just one factor. I mean, look at this week. Now they're saying that Trump is a secret Russian agent.
My God, yeah.
I mean,
New York Times.
It's crazy stuff. Look at the New York Times article is absolutely insane. When I saw the headline, it came out last night, and I don't have it in front of me, so I can't quote it exactly. But the way it read was, an investigation was opened against President Trump. And this story talks about the investigation that was opened a year and a half ago after Comey was fired. And of course, if you remember, it was Rosenstein who recommended that Comey get fired. So I mean, the reporting is just so bad, so one-sided, and I would say part of the coup, part of trying to remove him any way they possibly can.
Any way they possibly can, and not have it defined as a bloody coup.
Well, there have been, I believe, a dozen so far assassination attempts.
No.
That's the number I've heard.
We've had things happen this week, fellas, that really don't have precedent, both financially, geopolitically, in terms of the management of the United States, in terms of the management of the world. So we're very, very close, I would say, to everything that we have been looking for, especially the reset itself.
Well, Jim, as you put it, that started.
It has, sir.
I mean, Russia bought up 25% of global yuan reserves. Why would they do that? I wrote about it yesterday.
That's huge.
But it got zero, absolutely not one mention in anywhere. I mean, you can't find it.
No. Well, and it came and it originated, and you think it would have been covered on Bloomberg.
Right, exactly. Bloomberg reported it. It was never repeated. It was never talked about on
That's
CNBC.
Organized.
It was never reported on even. I don't think Bloomberg Business News reported it.
No, that was a mistake in letting it out. But that is enormous. Has enormous implications. Remember, any step forward for a major currency is a major step backwards for a reserve currency. So that's something that has to be put down on the side of the ledger. Is this has to be totally understood. It's a huge move, and it presages a reset, or is part of it.
Well, they're certainly positioning themselves. I mean, I asked the question, why? Why would Russia do that?
Yeah.
And the bottom line is they are positioning themselves for where they know that the world is headed and going.
Well, haven't they played the bond market perfectly? I mean, they've been getting out, and they've been selling into a bull market. A lot better than selling to a bear market.
Right, over the last, call it month.
Yeah. So what they do is indicative of an unfolding national agenda plan, currency superiority, and what we have on the other side is in order to keep the dollar superior, what has happened every time in history when there's been a global recession. And there is a global recession right now, regardless of the silliness that we read and hear on all the financial stations. The answer is international conflict.
Yep.
The only difference, fellas, are we might hypersonic. If you can't remember, it's so simple. If you can't catch it, you can't kill it. Think about that. You fire a missile, the thing you fire it at's going 3 times or 5 times as fast as a missile. How's the missile going to catch it? It can't. That was the bottom line of why the SR-71 was so successful for so long against 4,000 missile attacks. Now maybe that wouldn't work.
Well, when you look at the situation now, really, you have Pompeo announces international summit on Iran to address destabilizing influence. You know, what I see more probably occurring is another proxy war. But I think picking a fight with Iran would probably not be in the world's best interest. Because, strictly speaking, I don't see how...
Russia and China stand behind Iran, so...
That was where I was going. Strictly speaking, I don't see how it doesn't spiral completely out of control. I mean, completely out of control. And that's not something anybody, I don't care whether how well invested you are in, you know, gold or, you know, survival techniques.
Or food, yeah, exactly.
That's just not a world we want to live in. So that's why what our leaders or the deep state is doing does become incredibly important to us, because it appears that the agenda won't go away. And, you know, to jump back to the Bloomberg story you guys are quoting, there is a reason, and I have it here in your notes, Russia's central bank dumped $101 billion in holdings from its huge reserves, shifting into euros and yuan last spring. So what do you think they've done since then? It appears that everybody's got their card games ready to go. And, you know, the American people are going to be the last to know what's really going on.
Oh, Dave, it should be added, you mentioned euros, it should be added that the breakup of the Eurozone was drastically pushed forward this week with France and Germany doing a deal where militarily, financially, they're joining, and then you've got the southern European nations opposing it. I mean, against it. So there's your crack right there in the euro.
Well, and again,
the race to the bottom is in every currency. Okay. There's something very special about the yuan and Russia's action.
Well, for one, it puts yuan in pretty strong hands, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And when you talk about a quarter of the float, you're talking about something very serious. The quarter of the external currency.
That's big. And again, I don't think people realize how big that is.
And the less you see of anything, the bigger it is. Okay? That which is, you know, and every listener knows, has significant implications, which becomes an absolute zero in common reporting by all media, obviously is something outrageously important. That's the way we've become. Fake news all over the place. Real news, not a mention.
Yeah, when you see news, don't believe it. And when you come across news that seems like blockbuster news and you don't see it in the news, it's very real.
And when they call an article accusing the President of the United States, as if when reading the headline, as presently being an agent of another government, and they call it a blockbuster, okay? Now, guys, you know, that's a key word. And the real blockbuster, if you take your eyes off the real situation, is the fact that Russia took an outrageously large position in the external Chinese currency for some very important reason. And these are not economic, even though it turned out certainly to be, but basically the positions that we see in precious metals within the Chinese Russia are policies, okay? They are not economic decisions. They will be economically very correct, but the genesis is the Silk Road, and you're looking at government policy, and you're looking at alliances. I don't think anybody here thinks about that, except the way to overcome a global recession is to have the proxy war of all proxy wars start. And where's a better place? So you would oppose pulling out of Syria.
Go ahead, David. Let's move forward.
Bank of England boss, Mark Carney, China's renminbi will rival the dollar as global reserve currency. The article was actually very good. And towards the end, they talk about Alistair MacLeod talking about how the answer to this is to just simply back the yuan with gold. And for lack of a better word, presto changeo, you have the new world's reserve currency. Russia already owns a quarter of it. The mechanisms are already in place to bypass the U.S. dollar. And we're going to be isolated and left with France, which is a total basket case. We're going to get to that in a minute. You guys talk about this all the time, Bill. You harp on how much gold China may or may not have. Obviously, they have a lot more than they're telling us. That's just how they play the game.
How about their own miners? How about their own mines, David?
That's 400 tons a year.
China's huge in production without 1 ounce of that entering the open market.
Jim, if you go back to 2008, they've amassed 4,000 tons just from their own mines. Never mind buying in the open market, international
policy.
market.
So that is a policy, not a decision made on a keen understanding of the fact that debt has gone as far as it can go. This has to do with ruling and controlling, not as much as it has to do with making money. Because, you know, the value of these currencies are wild. The value of gold is a constant. And because of that, the value of gold will be much higher than anybody that I know. Oh, excuse me, maybe you guys are different. But let's say the general geniuses appreciate.
And I would add China will be the one who prices gold.
Yeah. And if you don't have it, you're not going to get it because it isn't going to go up by 10 cents and 10 cents. You're going to wake up one morning and you're not going to believe you're not going to believe what's on the computer. You think the computer crashed. Up. Bad word, crash. Up, not down. And it never stops complicating.
Supply will crash, Jim. There will be no supply.
Well, exactly. So there's going to be no market on the way up, and the truth of it is that we have no markets anywhere at all, and I've said that too many times to repeat it. But if you think you're going to buy it the day before, you are really, really kidding yourself. You have it now. When this happens, you won't have it. I'm sitting on reserves and resources. Tanzania, Magufuli ordered the Central Bank of Tanzania to begin to buy gold to back their currency.
Yeah, that news slipped through the cracks this week.
Oh, it's a big thing.
I mean, we posted it.
Yeah, it's a big thing because, you know, remember these producing countries, many of them, not Tanzania, are wiggling at best. Their currencies are, and their economics. What if most gold-producing countries decided to keep it? Countries decided to keep it rather than going on the open market. Yeah, the gold miners will get paid for it, and they could go into any currency they want. That's if they even wanted to sell it. and most of their expenses are in the countries where they produce it. So there is enormous change taking place this week. In fact, doesn't it seem, David, it accelerates every week beyond what anyone would ever expect?
It's such a daily event that I cannot start taking notes that I'm going to quiz you guys on to the last. It's down to the last second because you never know what's going to happen in the next 2 seconds around here anymore. It's like
we have to check after this is over to see there hasn't been some big change.
Yeah, every day there's a leapfrog.
If you think about the speed at which things are happening, and as I said to you guys before we got on the phone, 20 years ago, before the Internet, people could not check the price of stocks 57 times, 157 times a day, and make themselves neurotic. It makes it so that it's hard to plan because your emotions are driving you from minute to minute. It's like watching a thriller movie, and you can't turn away from it. They know that. This is all part of the plan to just basically turn the population into deer in the headlights because they can overload you with information. I mean, even trying to pay attention, being as skeptical as I am, it is so hard to keep up with what's going on, decipher it. I call you guys. I'm like, run it past you. I'm like, am I crazy, or is this how you see this too? And it's like, it's bizarre.
We see it the same way as you, David, but yeah, you are crazy.
Right, and I admit I am.
Yeah, I'm the only sane guy here.
It's hard to brainwash a crazy person because I'm not smart enough to be brainwashed, and I can't really use their gadgets that well. But in the bigger picture, the information overload, if you're trying to run a regular lifestyle, God forbid you had kids and family and businesses to run, you forget it. You could almost call yourself uninformed because you couldn't run a family, run a household, run a business, have a job, take care of the pets, and still try to know what's going on because the amount of data stories and data points out there will just it'll blow your mind, would it not?
Yeah, we don't have the great anchors of the 1950s and 60s who could be relatively trusted to report the news. So you tell me where people are going to see all this if they don't listen to us on the weekdays, read good publications during the week to try and summate these outrageously important, fast-changing circumstances that are not going to just go away. They all are headed somewhere, and that somewhere is not a nice place for the general public.
Yeah, David, that's a huge thing. If you go back 30, 40 years ago, for the most part, when you watched the news or read the news or whatever, it was relatively close to reality. And one of the biggest problems today for us is we get stories in, we have to vet the stories. I mean, I've been fooled on a couple. Jim, I know you got fooled on one.
I've been, absolutely.
I forget what it was, but it was pretty funny.
Well, absolutely recently. Okay.
But, I mean, the point being, when you hear news today, you have to vet it. You have to look at it from all kinds of different angles, and one angle is just from common sense. Could that even possibly be true?
Well, let me just give us short stories. It's going to show you that David's comment about information overload is absolute. Back in the older days, when you wanted to get a last sale, where do you think it came from? The only place you could find a last sale on the exchange was by contacting the odd lot dealers, DeCoppet, Doremus, and firms like that. They got every odd lot trade. That's all they did. If you had 225 trade, they did the 25, and they made a very good living that way. You'd ring up them. Everybody had a wire to them, and you'd say, "What was the last on this?" They'd give it. You'd yell it out to whoever it asked, and then the customer on the telephone would find out what the last sale was. Now, that's a bit slower, isn't it, than a computer? They only could be gotten from the odd lot dealers on the New York Stock Exchange, as far as New York Stock Exchange last sales are concerned. As far as over-the-counter last sales, they simply couldn't be gotten. They could tell you a bid and offer, but they couldn't tell you where it traded. Now, I lived in that world as a specialist. David, you are so correct. The pretend markets have become free Nintendo toys for the public. There is no market because there is no supply and demand when things change. When Apple hits the skids, it don't hit the skids for $50. It hits the skids for $500. I mean, that's outrageous. Currencies move outrageously. That would have been called a crisis. And the bond market over the last few years hasn't been too far away from that either. So you're 100% right, David. The people have been dumbed down by too much information. And you have to be your own fact checker. Please tell me how a person does that.
You can't.
We try.
Right.
Well, because of our contact.
But to try and for the average person to try and do this, my wife must think I'm retarded because I just sit here and it's just like you have to comb through so much data on a daily basis just to try and keep your eye on the ball. And like I'll say to her, this is only what I know. This is only what I could look up and find. And I really don't know anything. If you were to compare it to what's going on behind the scenes, this is like an iceberg. I'm just seeing the very tip of it. 90% of it's concealed, and the deep state, whoever you want to believe they are, has this whole show under their control.
Well, because they have every employee from the sweeper up over how many years under their control because of the allegiance to who pays the salary.
Right, and that's what the average person has an allegiance to is their paycheck, not the truth.
People don't have allegiances. We don't have patriots. And did you look at the flag behind the president when he made his public address? I mean, you really have to look at it. It was wrinkled, it was not clean, and it had bullet holes in it.
It had burn holes at the bottom of it.
And look down at the bottom, you'll see the black hole and rips. That flag has been through a firefight. We need people who realize what the flag stands for.
Hey,
Somebody
Jim?
died at that flag, yes?
Maybe that flag is what flew over the Benghazi consulate.
Well, all I can tell you is it's been, that's the flag that should be there. But that flag has been in a serious and very important conflict. And, we got a guy who respects that. And that's a big step up from what we had before.
Okay.
So you got these two huge powers fighting each other, and I'm going to go back. It's a coup. Come on. It's not a bloody coup, but maybe if one of those incidents you told me about, Bill, had actually hit, that's what it would be.
Again, no argument here. I said day one that Pence was going to be to this administration what Johnson was to the Kennedy administration to Bill. And every time I look at Pence, I get those dark eyes. He just strikes me as such a sneaky guy. It's like I wouldn't turn my back on him either. But as we move this along, because I want to have plenty of time to get to the rest of the things that we've got to cover here. France. The Yellow Vest protest is so much larger than the public here has any idea, unless you're watching foreign news. Sputnik and RT are the only place you're getting real coverage on just how big these protests are. And now you have the Yellow Vests calling for a bank run. They understand how to stop the madness. They know what the weakness to the system is. Jim, we talked about how Department of Homeland Security, we had our own Yellow Vest in this country. It was called Occupy Wall Street. They were people who wanted to see Wall Street held accountable for the 2008 financial crisis. Whether you liked them or disliked them, Homeland Security swept that operation up like swatting flies in a matter of days. America does not want the public to think for 1 second that they have the ability to control events. Well, the Yellow Vests seem to have taken this to the whole next level of nonviolent protest. They'll simply create a run on the bank by taking out all their money. What would be the consequences of that? Jim, you want to run with that?
Well, I'd say right here, right now, and if we're talking about the U.S., it would be the largest airships anywhere and the most computer button money that you can find. The French can't keep up with that. In other words, if this continues on these weekend attacks and weekday attacks, the French system will implode. At the same time, you've got a leader that is as close to saying, let them take as possible. And there's a little bit that in the German-French alliance that's developing right now. So it looks, I mean, this resulted the last time they did it in a revolution. So tell me how they're going to keep it nonviolent once they pull the plug on the bank.
Well, David, the crashing the bank scenario by pulling all their money out is kind of laughable because you would have the ECB just printing money and shoving it into the banks. They will not crash the banks.
Well, they're going to shove the money in. Well, they'll you know, you got to have the money in the bank to get it out, or you have to be able to make a computer credit. Okay, but these people who go to the bank want their cash, and you don't have that much cash in any bank. And we've seen situations where there's been huge physical deliveries of cash to stop something like that when it started right here for one reason or another. So, yeah, I'll go along with what you say, Bill, but let's take that one step further. Everybody printing everywhere can only result in what? Worldwide, global hyperinflation.
Well, that's where we're headed.
Yeah. So what do you end up? And where do we go? And war fits in with this too comfortably, according to historical precedent. What say you, David, on that?
Well, it's funny. George Galloway wrote an article, Fall of Empires, London, Washington, and Paris on the brink of collapse. And it appears that we are on the verge of just coming unglued. I mean, look at, California. They want to give free health care to everybody, including all the immigrants, without addressing how it's going to be paid for. And the mayor of New York, same thing. Hey, don't get me wrong. I completely understand the concept of taking care of people, but you still need a plan on, one, how you're going to pay for it, and you can't have an open border policy and say, everybody who comes in off the boat automatically gets X, Y, and Z. Because if you go back to when we had our parents, my parents were immigrants when they came to the country, actually my parents' parents, they didn't come here and get benefits. They came here, got nothing, and became coal miners. And after working for how many ever years, they were old.
That would explain why you know so well how to dig fallout shelters.
Well, I do come from a long line of coal miners. And then, it's just, we have to have some common sense here. We have to run the country like sane people. And right now, we look pretty insane. If you were to just sit down and analyze what's going on, the whole Western world looks insane. And the reason for that is quite simple, because they've stolen all the money all along the way, and they have made promises that all us little people were going to get all these benefits sometime down the road. Sometime down the road has come, and there's no money to pay us the benefits. So they have to come up with a way to make that problem go away. And Jim, that's where your reset seems to play in, does it not?
That's the whole. Yes, sir. That is exactly why it is being constructed, and is happening. And gold does not need to be convertible. Gold is the only item that has, for all history, maintained a storehouse of value. And a storehouse of value alone isn't a currency, but it is the most important asset. While all paper currencies, without exception, just like empires, have disappeared. And if you want a why, you should have gold or silver. There's your why. It's your savings account, man. Don't put your money into something that goes down in value. Keep your money in something that historically has appreciated. The banks get hit by these runs. It's certainly going to have an impact on people who want to put their money in an asset with a historical record of standing strong against everything we're talking about.
And, Jim, it does so because gold and silver have no liability.
That's exactly correct. You can argue it any way you want, but when you come back to it, there's nobody on the other side of the trade.
Yep.
They got no...
Then you have to ask yourself, why does the news media in this country go out of their way to keep the public in the dark about it?
Because they're paid to.
Well, that's pretty much the bottom line, isn't it?
Yeah.
I agree 100% because you said the answer earlier. They're paid to.
How about the CNN station in San Diego that CNN walked away from because the reporters in San Diego said, well, yeah, here in San Diego, the wall actually works.
Yeah. Well, that is just impossible to believe because people who now stand four square to prevent that wall all had voted for it at different periods of time.
Right.
Now, explain to me how that makes sense. It only makes sense if they're part of, voluntarily or involuntarily, a soft coup. Prevent this man from doing anything whatsoever as a means of getting rid of him.
Well, I would use the word disingenuous. I mean, the whole left is disingenuous, and I'll leave it at that because I could easily go into a swearing tirade. So I'll just leave it at that.
Now you know how in the Civil War, brother fought brother.
Yep.
Because now the word, I mean, I won't get involved in my own family in a political discussion because it would break the family up. Everybody, what they believe intensely, and the entire young group of have been sent to colleges which have had no control over the fact that they have been taken over by pure socialism.
They don't even know they've been taken over.
But they are taken over. But this type of stuff doesn't happen like the change in temperature and weather because that's normal. I mean, how many ice ages have we had? This is planned. Very well planned. Very well executed. And I'm not sure there's anything we can do about it except for try and protect ourselves as much as possible. And have the courage to, it's this way. If you see a fraud and don't yell fraud, you are a fraud. Okay? We see a fraud, we yell fraud. We're not a fraud.
Okay. And again, so let's move this along to here's where this comes down to. U.S. risks losing AAA sovereign credit rating over shutdown, Fitch warns. Really? Can you imagine we have a AAA credit rating when our debt spirals to $22 trillion, and that's only what they tell us about? We say there's another $22 trillion on top of that. I mean, come on, we may downgrade you?
At 110% debt to GDP. Banana Republic land.
Exactly. So, and again, what are we talking about here? But is there any disagreement on that, or want to just move right along? That's just
please move along. There's no disagreement here.
Yeah, it's craziness. Okay.
Move along, Dave. Nothing to see here.
Yeah, move on. Nothing to see here at all. I mean, what's $40 trillion? And again, those numbers don't even reflect hidden costs for health cares in cities like New York, Chicago. I mean, Illinois is completely upside down. There is no money to provide any of the promises. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
100%.
Okay. Here we go. Now you have the Swiss National Bank announcing that they had $15 billion in losses. Well, is it a hedge fund or is it a national central bank? I mean, what's going on? You lost $15 billion? Where were you, trading in the stock market?
It's a central bank that kids took over.
Yes, that is correct. That was the end of Switzerland when my generation stopped playing cards every Friday night at the Bordelak. It was over. In other words, when the guys all got together, when you bowed your head past the Union Bank of Switzerland and only talked in a whisper. Slight change.
Well, I thought that's why they held gold, so stuff like this didn't happen.
It was past tense.
They did. And it didn't happen until they decided they shouldn't. And gold became very second, it lost its position even in Switzerland as a tier 1 asset.
Well, let me just rattle off some of the top holdings as of September 30th for the Swiss National Bank. Apple Computer,
FANGS.
Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, Johnson & Johnson, Facebook, ExxonMobil, Visa, United Health Group, Pfizer, AT&T, Verizon, Home Depot, Procter & Gamble, Chevron, Cisco, MasterCard, Intel, Coca-Cola, Merrick, and Boeing. I mean, I don't know. I thought central banks, national banks were supposed to preserve our wealth, not gamble it away.
I was an investment director of a bank for part of my career in Switzerland, and if you had even mentioned such a concept, you would have been put in the baggage part of an airplane and sent anywhere out of Switzerland instantly.
Just laughed at.
Not even laughed at. I mean, really, get out, you stupid fool. They have no problem saying what was on their mind in my day. But you said something, Bill, that it was very important. The kids took over. And I want to answer that. The geeks have taken over. And it's the kids and the geeks that literally have ruined everything in their profound belief that you don't have to pay. All you have to do is pay.
They don't even know it.
Well, the truth is, no, they don't. You can't even argue with them. They don't know how wrong they are. They have no idea, in many cases, the damage they've done. We have things called high-frequency trading. We have a law book. In the law book, you must never run ahead of the general public. The whole basis of high-speed trading is running ahead of the general public.
Right.
Okay, spoofing you couldn't do back in my age. Why? It took you many phone calls to get your orders to the floor and the guy out into the ring or wherever he was. I mean, and how are you going to pull that order in 30 seconds? Well, if it took 2.5 minutes to get it down there, it's going to have to take 2.5 minutes to pull it back. How do you spoof? You don't. You need a computer to do it. That is making huge bids and offers that don't exist.
Or you could send somebody onto the COMEX floor dressed as an Arab and walk into the gold.
Yeah, listen, that's a subject that we probably should hold for never discussion.
Well,
especially when I wrote the check to pay him, and he was Jewish. And I can say that because I'm half Jewish. I said, "Didn't it bother you to dress up like an Arab?" And he said, "It's a gig."
The world's running out of gold. In the article, it goes on to say that there are no more large finds. You want to talk about peak oil. It appears that we are at peak gold. People responsible for supplying the world with gold are sounding the alarm, saying discoveries
I may change that with one hole, okay? I don't want to interrupt, but I will tell you. I think there's a possibility I may change that statement with one hole. And I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm telling you it might happen. And, I'm a believer. It's called the Uli hole, ULLI. Only in mining can you say that. In any other industry, that sounds gross.
Well, Jim, the whole thing is there's not been, for 10 years now,
since Bullion Hole,
there's really been very little exploration.
There's none. How does a cash-intensive business exist that can't get cash?
Right.
The economics hasn't been there. Anybody who's even whittling as an explorer is the ultimate survivor of all time.
Well, the fact of the matter is, if you look at the last 15 years, they have found no 50 million ounce deposits, no 30 million ounce deposits, and only very few 15 million ounce deposits.
Hey, please give me credit on
Jim
Bullion
found one of those.
I already had one.
Exactly. And,
Bullion Hulu.
And you may have two, so.
Let's see what comes out of Uli's hole.
Uli's hole, okay.
That's got me damn excited, I'll tell you.
I think I know somebody who resembles that remark.
Yeah, we mustn't talk like that, or will we put off whatever we're on for doing, speaking about improper things.
I'd like to just touch on a Bloomberg article, and it's in relation to gold. Gold may extend gains as global growth slows. Equity market volatility remains elevated, and the Federal Reserve is expected to ease back on the pace of policy tightening this year, according to a BlackRock Inc. money manager who says that the precious metal offers an effective hedge. Recession fears are probably overblown, but I do think we're experiencing a slowdown, Russ, portfolio manager at the $60 billion BlackRock Global Allocation Fund, said in an interview, citing deceleration. Listen to that. Citing deceleration in the U.S., China, and Europe. While BlackRock doesn't have a price target, it's been raising bullion holdings since the third quarter. Well, again, we've said all along, the world is slowing down. Here's confirmation of it. U.S., China, and Europe are, in fact, slowing down. And I don't want to say BlackRock knows what they're talking about and, they're adding to their goal. All I want is confirmation that the world's markets are slowing down.
Well, David, all you have to do is look at auto sales, look at real estate all over the world, look at shipping rates. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The global economy is slowing down.
Say about one read of Mr. Williams' work, which is totally legitimate. And what other conclusion can you come to? Mr. Williams is only using the matrix of the 70s and putting today's figures in how it was determined, these economic reports, and how they've changed those matrices where be able to show any really significant inflation is possibly impossible.
Right. Can I touch on that for 1 second? Because I'm old enough. I remember when stamps were 4 cents. 4 cents. I remember as a kid thinking 4 cents. That's unbelievable.
Holy cow, you are older than me.
Exactly. You could mail this letter.
I'm older than all you guys. I'm not proud of it. Okay, so respect your elders here.
Think about what percent inflation there has to be if you went from 4 cents to, what is it now? It's going to 55 cents? I mean, is there some type of hedonic adjustment that I'm missing? Because wouldn't that just in itself tell you there is massive inflation just in my lifetime?
I remember gasoline under 20 cents.
And the sad thing is the average snowflake doesn't even know how to mail a letter because they don't know where to get a stamp from.
Well, I mean, write letters. Who writes letters? When was the last time you got a handwritten letter?
Got one this week.
Must have been from me. It was a thank you note for all the good stuff you told me this year.
Well, just all I'm getting at here is, everything we talk about every single week is leading to one single thing. And how this event plays out in its timing is the only thing that seems to be in question now. Because, we've followed the yellow brick road. I think everybody listening to this conversation has followed the yellow brick road. And at this particular point in time, we're going to see where the fork in the road goes. Is there any simpler way to put it than that? The fork in the road.
And we're there now. Okay, the fork in the road is here, maybe behind us, and it's going to go the way. It's going to go the way that the most vocal and the most powerful people want. Believe me, we're going to have our own yellow jackets. The only reason that France got ahead on that is they had a granny state that said you had to have a yellow jacket to get out of your car if your car broke down. So everybody already has their yellow jackets. That was a mistake. They supply They supply uniforms to the population.
Well, we obviously have a divided population, and if you want to call conservatives the yellow jacket side, the other side, I mean, they're rainbow jackets, whatever you want to call it. I mean, to me, I guess I would use the word disgusting that people could be so naive, so ignorant in their thought process that they believe so firmly that their beliefs are going to lead to something good, whereas their beliefs are going to lead to a dictator somewhere, somehow in the future. I mean, it's like the kids today absolutely want to overturn the Constitution and basically strip individuals of their individual rights. And if you disagree with them, you get shouted down.
Yes, you get shouted down, and thank God, as you once said, that that side doesn't have a cachet of weapons yet. We are the deplorables, okay? And the other side is the elites.
Well, the deplorables are armed. And, I was talking to somebody here this week, and he said, I was talking to somebody, he was talking to a UPS guy that was delivering some ammo to him. And he said something about he had 20,000 rounds of ammunition. And the UPS guy told him, if I only had 20,000 rounds of ammunition, I would be a basket case. I'd be so nervous that I'd run out. Now, that's Texas, so understand that.
The best investment. A 50 caliber round, the biggest one they got in the pistol, is $3 a shot, literally.
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what. You squeeze the trigger and get 20, 30 rounds come out. That's expensive. It's like $100.
Well, I mean, it is expensive. It costs a fortune.
Right.
You don't go to the range and blow $3 down the range to hit a piece of paper.
Hey, Jim, Dave, I actually had a guy sent me a picture of going to the range for the 50 caliber, and showed a picture of what it did to the target. And I said if it was a pumpkin or a head or a body or whatever, it wouldn't be there.
No, it wouldn't. The thing looks like a shotgun round.
Yeah, it looks like a slug.
It does. $3 a shot. There's no inflation.
Well, on that note, guys, as always, I think it's, a service we're trying to provide. I hope we do. It's hard on a weekly basis, to try and, wrap a picture that leads us back to gold, but all the roads do lead back to gold all the time. Again, Bill, you're going to put a piece out on Monday that I'm looking forward to because I know what you're putting in it, things we've talked about.
Right.
And I think that will help a lot of people along the way here understand, like one of the readers had written into you about, what gold shares you may or may not like or why. So try and cover that in your little piece, and I look forward to seeing that.
I'll do it.
Can I tell you what a pleasure it is, and I mean this, to meet with you guys once a week, and to hear solid, hard reasoning.
Well,
I'm
it's
honored.
a bullshit-free 1 hour.
Hey, that's a bullshit-free. It's a free 1 hour for those that are listening. For us, it's 1 hour of exposing ourselves quite nicely to some things they wouldn't have the balls to do.
That's true.
Well, on that note, anytime I can be of help.
Dave, let me ask you this. Can I post the picture, if I black your face out, of you being Rambo Dave with a 50 cal machine gun?
No, you might. You got to blank out everything in the background.
Right, that one I think you have the picture of. That's my bolt action 50. But if you were to black out the eyes, I wouldn't care. But yes, I do possess one. I do. I am pretty handy with it. And to your point, Bill, if you were to take a pressure-treated 8x8 and put a paper target on it and shoot it
right through it,
200 yards, it disintegrates.
Yeah.
I mean, completely disintegrates the 8x8. It's cinder blocks, solid blocks. It is an amazing amount of power that comes out of that weapon. And it is very expensive, Jim, you're right. So it's not my usual plinking toy, but it is fun from time to time.
Unless you want to plink a few $100s at a Coke can, which you're going to destroy anyway.
Or if you want to clear a lot.
Right.
Clear a lot of it. If you want to clear a lot full of crazies, that would take care of it.
You don't want to hide behind a tree if I have this, because it's not even a baobab tree, by the way, that elephants hide behind in Africa. So, all right, guys, as always, it's great. We'll do this again next week, and if anything happens during the week, you know where to find me.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys.